What the? Wait, I died it so fast! Stellar Blade announced that it would be uncensored in all countries, but then some players noticed the amount of blood that covers Eve right after killing the first boss is reduced. That same scene that ended the demo, the climax, that holy that was mental, take my money, take it now moment. That same moment that you get to see again straight after transferring your save to the full game, the conclusion to the first fight. That's like Stellar Blade immediately saying, psyched to its customers. And then, some who received the disc before day one noticed that their holiday rabbit was more revealing than what other reviewers were showing. That their disc version matched the form which the trailer showed, then found out it's not an alternative, but it's the patch that changes it. People then kept digging and found more and more costumes having additional details covering skin. And any level of reducing something you could see or hear would be censorship. Less blood, less skin. What happened to uncensored all countries? Even if the conclusion is still the same, which is give us back our blood splatter and costumes we saw before, let's consider some of what we know, concepts, and perhaps how to look at this from an expanded perspective. After the demo, just days before the game's release, we were promised uncensored all countries. So we expect nothing to be toned down that we've seen. If you've watched the gameplay reveal or launch trailer, there are no blurbs saying that the images are from an alpha version and don't represent the final game. So, after that announcement, you would think that everything we've seen is locked down. Else, it's false advertising, it's censorship, end of story. So, Sony and Shift Up, change it back. The end. But that doesn't settle my curiosity. Why? How? Let's take a look at what we know. So starting with the tweet that's saying uncensored in all countries, including Japan. It's absolute hypocrisy that games like The Last of Us 2 has full sex scenes and Baldur's Gate has customizable jiggly cock and balls, yet, at least for certain outfits, we can't have a little bit of extra butt cheek or chest crack, right? Uncensored in all countries, including Japan. That sex scene in The Last of Us 2 that everyone likes to refer to, uncensored in all countries including Japan? And actually, it was cut out completely. Okay, what about those big bouncy boulders bollocks? Oh, it's just a leaf. And the options to change that just don't exist. Furthermore, the JP version of Baldur's Gate on PS5 has had corpses with internal organs becoming external no longer have those organs on display, and torture options removed as well, not uncensored in all countries. However, like Cyberpunk, this is a console version thing. So, these games were censored in Japan. If Stellar Blade had scenes of people ramming each other with each other's... If Stellar Blade had scenes of people ramming each other with their own appendages, then they wouldn't have been able to post this tweet, huh? You know what? A game designed from the ground up like Tetris or Sackboy could tweet that they're uncensored in all countries too. They never designed Sackboy with ball sex, or Barbie Explorer with humans getting torn to pieces, same-sex intimate interactions, drug use, and so on. Uncensored in all countries including Japan. What really do they mean? Stellar Blade is 0D, the second highest rating in Japan, ages 17 and up. I want to show you a painful scene from Resident Evil 8, and that same scene in Biohazard 8, 0D, and Z versions. Notice both Japanese versions have had their gore reduced from the international versions. In 0D, which is Stellar Blade's rating, need I point out that the hand stayed on. Similarly, in the original Last of Us, in Japan, they changed the camera angle so that you can't see a similar event occur. And this dude makes a head fall off in the West, where in Japan it doesn't. So, Japan is really peculiar about realistic violence on consoles. Sometimes the PC versions of games like Cyberpunk gets away with everything, but that's another story. Uncensored in all countries including Japan. What are they proud of? Do you know what scene that they pixelated in that tweet? Unpixelating in 3, 2, 1. Ha! Human character dismemberment. Kinda like what I just showed you before, right? So if the US gets this, so will Japan. Japanese players that don't want to play censored games don't have to think about importing the game to Japan and then losing the Japanese dubs. Which is great, and I believe that that's all that this tweet meant. You can play the game in Japan, in the US, in Saudi Arabia, all the same. But we still have a huge elephant in the room here. The game was still toned down. And I have a gut feeling that at the last minute they aimed for Zero D, which makes it easier to market. You can even see it on the trains in Japan. A goalpost seems to have been moved at the last minute here. To guarantee a rating, you simply have to adjust a few depictions. See Zero D versus Zero D versions of Resident Evil 2. Like this jaw flops around or doesn't. Zero D versus Zero D? You drunk. D versus Z, the 18+ version. In Japan, a lot of games don't let player-controlled characters get minced up, especially by other players, followed by a humanoid. Then, the less human, the more okay it is to get away with. Bits flying off. If the skin suit gets bloodied up so much, then shouldn't every other costume? Is it a feature of not having shields? Why does the 7th Diver Nano Suit and its variants get some, but no other? Probably because that's the only suit that you have at the time. First playthrough, at least. It looks like the way this was done was to switch costume to an alternative bloodied version, as it instantly changes in one frame, and the pattern is the same every time. Makes sense for performance reasons, but then you'd have to do this with the vicinity of 80 outfits and still counting. The outfits don't get wet or dirty or anything either. Consistency. Compared to the demo, in the full game when you defeat Abaddon with the default Nano Suit, the same amount of blood lands on Eve's body, but less on her face. Only the original Abaddon though. In the boss challenge mode added in 1.003, this still applies to the original but not the other Abaddon despite having the same end animation existing. Once you've played through the entire game, you will notice that there's no other scene where Eve gets splashed with blood. So it seems the devs decided before completing the base game to just give up or didn't like getting Eve dirty. Finally, the blood that you saw on her face in the demo is used elsewhere on a non-player character in the full game. Where? Spoiler alert! Look away if you don't want possible story or lore reveals now. This is where it was used. What you're seeing now is very reminiscent of the amount of blood that we saw on the demo's skin suit.
That face, it's familiar.
The splatter on the face is exactly the same. And all of this makes more sense in context as the face does look like it was more of the result of being attacked, more than having blood from something else rained on her. Spoiler over. It's safer to look again. What was that voice break? So, was it a test thing that slipped into the demo? A conscious decision for the target rating to remove it from the player? The reason why in an interview we got the explanation of a reaction when they were asked what it was like to work with Sony Interactive Entertainment? A too much work didn't do situation? Not sure. As for the clothing modification choices, this is harder to draw any conclusions, as the skin suit and others don't seem to have become more modest at all. Other outfits have. Perhaps there are strange rules of how much you can get away with certain types of costumes. Strange things happen like that, like the dude that wanted to ban high school girls from wearing ponytails because apparently that's too sexual. Or perhaps it was just the devs that were genuinely still tweaking them. It still comes off as censorship though. But let's look at the autonetic bondage outfit especially. The trailers show that you can fully see her stomach, and nothing really in the center of her torso at all. Then, the version that we see on the 1.000 disc has a stomach piece added. It still shows her belly button, unlike the standard cybernetic bondage version, so covering that in the cybernetic bondage outfit wasn't a censorship-driven thing after all. But then in 1.002, not only her chest gets more covered up, but the material design for the stomach was completely changed. Funny how the white Monsoon model is still blue. So in development, they copied the model and created a secondary version. The name suggests they knew how they wanted to change it, but they hadn't started changing it before the build was sent to the printers. Also, I noticed the ribbons on the back seem to be upside down in 1.0. Anti-gravity ribbons! Nice. The 1.003 update added black and white kunoichi outfits, which are amusingly on the base disc. The physics and transparency seems a little different. There's just so much to say that they were still working on the costumes and New Game Plus content when someone decided it's time to ship the product. Clearly, this means that the designers were still experimenting with ideas after the disc was pressed. If it was just because they preferred the form, or if it was for that rating though, I wouldn't know. Who decided this too, I can't tell. Shift Up released a statement saying that the 1.002 versions, well, these were changed in 1.001, were what they wanted to show, but most people are in the belief that that was Sony's push. Most, if not all of the outfit changes are done after scanning original models into the game. There are 3 possibilities for the changes here. Game designer taste, which is what they actually said it was, censorship, or the original costume copy-paste not really being agreed upon in the first place. With there being last-minute changes, it's easier to miss some tidy-ups, especially when different people are working on different aspects and one person may not always know what another has done. Look at the tooltip for the final can reward graphic in 1.000. In 1.000, the Black Pearl Collection rewards icon was already updated, but not the screen when you actually unlock the outfit. The actual Black Pearl in 1.0 had already been changed.
The Black Pearl.
Oh yeah, and then some lighting artists released images as part of a portfolio, including the original scan version of the Black Pearl in use, kinda solidifying that it is or was playable at some point of development. Oh, and an alternative ocean made, not in 1.005 as well. No ponytail. That was quickly 404'd. Although the modules tooltip in 1.002 still showed no leggings for this outfit, the 1.003 patch changed the tooltip video, excluding the outfit entirely. It's also zoomed in a little bit more. The fact that the UI designers changed the module tooltip video doesn't give me much hope that we will ever see the original outfits return. To me, these changes found tells us that the UI designers were also not done when the 1.0 snapshot was taken. They were still scanning through and updating elements to match the model changes. They probably missed the Nano Suit tooltip, hence it being updated in 1.003. Uncensored in all countries including Japan. This was posted after reviewers were already playing, after most if not all these design changes had already happened. We were just a couple of days away from discovering them. Maybe they knew that all countries will get the exact same version, so posted that, unaware of how it could easily be interpreted in so many ways. Maybe a better announcement would have been, no country will be more censored than another, even Japan. Or perhaps better to say unified. Only if it passes all countries' classification systems can anyone get it, meaning maximum watered down version. You get all the censorships. Anyway, as said at the beginning, none of the promotional materials said that the artwork is not final. So when that tweet went out, the goriest of gore and the most risque elements should have been locked in, from a customer perspective, not the developer's one. However, some people would prefer the changes or feel more comfortable using them. There is a solution, and that is to let us toggle the versions of the outfits by clicking R3 or L3. I think that would be tidier than having a longer list of variations. For example, we've seen 3 alternative bondage outfits, so let us cycle between versions 0.9, 1.0, and 1.1. It's not hard to find entire images dedicated to comparing versions, and even real-life outfits that these costumes have been inspired by, or simply scanned even. This isn't exactly the most elegant solution, as I'm sure that the developers only wanted to have one variant of these outfits. However, people like what they saw, and some do like what they are seeing. If the tweet never happened, or the promo materials said that they are not final, this wouldn't need to be considered, but it is what it is. What the? Wait, I died it so fast! Ah, I see. My character stats are mostly pre-New Game Plus. Still have the skills, but everything else seems to have reverted. Why did they get rid of the aquacolor highlight for scans revealing enemies hidden as statues? It's red in the latest version. After testing for myself, it's apparent that New Game Plus was just not included on the disc because not all of the New Game Plus assets were complete when the snapshot of the game build was sent off to be printed on disc. Especially evident once we've learned that we can roll back to 1.000 and be able to continue your save with hard mode, New Game Plus skills, and a whole bunch of your extra Nano Suits still intact. A whole bunch of extra Nano Suits disappearing as well, amongst other things, like enemies and buffs. I heard though that the Stalker boss in New Game Plus softlock says you can't pick up the items after defeating it, so if you do this, maybe don't play to progress unpatched in New Game Plus in case of incomplete things like that. If you want to try this for yourself, be aware that you need to back up your save before downgrading to 1.0, so that you can revert back to your save and recover lost progress. When downgrading your save, it will delete anything unlocked that is not in the base game from your save, even after updating again. Hence, back up and restore. There is a lot missing in 1.0. For example, Mark II gear, extended health, energy, and attack, higher quantity and more effective potions, and a lot of the secondary outfits will all vanish. I tried to unlock the yellow holiday bunny in 1.0, but just got Bitcoin. I guess that will only ever be seen by us in the trailer. If you started New Game Plus, you will be in a sort of New Game Plus mode in 1.0, but it appears changes like the additional enemies just don't exist. If anything, it's just interesting to confirm or even make the game harder for a while. To revert to 1.0, back up your save, take out the disk, disconnect from the internet, delete the game. This will not delete your save. Put the disk back in, wait for install, play. That's it. As long as your console isn't connected, no magic auto updates will occur. It takes time to reinstall, and the 1.0 to current update is already over 10 gig, as of 1.005. When you are done experimenting with 1.0, reconnect to the internet, update the game. Feel free to launch to see that you have lost a bunch of stuff, recover your save that you backed up, and now you'll be back to where you were before trying 1.0. All unlocks returned. Of course, be super intentional and cautious when handling saves. You don't want to go ahead and overwrite the wrong save data, losing your progress. This process still works with a 1.005 save file, but maybe a future patch will render your current version save entirely unplayable if you downgrade. I hope not, but backing up first before trying is essential. Kancho is the practice of sticking your fingers up someone else's butt. I don't know why I decided to shout my way through this video, but anyway. One other thing I'd like to point out here is that even though Sony does play a large part of the censorship, especially since it moved to California, there are other bodies out there that have to be considered, and those are the local law regulations. And just like what you would consider are weird laws in other countries in real life, when it comes to our entertainment, other countries have what you would consider are weird regulations there too.